Bruce was just running a medical story past. Probably not for tea time.
No, definitely not. No, unless you're a Piccadilly tube train driver.
That's going to have to remain unanswered, I think. Bruce Dickinson is here, an autobiography he's written, may contain flying heavy metal, it says at the bottom, but at the top there's a little button which says, what does this button do?
Yeah.
So, Bruce, it's very nice to see you. Looking very well, sir.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah.
So we should just say right at the very beginning what this book is not, because you say in the book right at the end that you made a specific point of not include. So in this book is full of rock and roll, lots of stories, lots of school, lots of going on tour, a little bit of illness in there, some flying, some fencing, some broadcasting, all that kind of stuff. But it's not got what a lot of autobiographies tend to revolve around, which is wives, divorces, children. You tell all of this, but without doing that. Just explain what you wanted to do with this book.
Well, I mean, first of all, I don't read that many, autobiographies. So one of the things when they said, "You want to do it?" I went, "Oh, okay. Let me have a look. Let me think to the last couple of autobiographies I read. I really enjoyed, and you have to go back a long way to one called "The Moon's a Balloon" by David Niven, which was brilliant. What a great read! It was like a romp. It was like being in the pub with a guy, except you wouldn't be in a pub with David Niven. You'd be on a yacht in the men drinking champagne. But it was anyway. It was like being with him, telling you great stories. And the other one was George Melly, Rum Bum and Concertina, which was again a fantastically well-written, well-crafted series of stories. And I thought, well, what's the common theme there? Is they're all really good stories. They're all uplifting books in their own right, and none of them are particularly nasty to other people. There's no need for it, really. And I think there's a belief that somehow that nastiness somehow sells books. I'm not sure, one, that it does, and two, that it's particularly the sort of book that I want to be a part of. So I made the decision that, in and amongst not being like horrid to people, because it was just there's no point, at the same time, I thought, well, I also don't want to tell confidences about other people's lives. If I want to share confidence about my life, because it's my autobiography, fair enough, but dropping other people in it for the sake of ratings, basically, I think is immoral.
Did it make it difficult? The fact that you have survived head and neck cancer, which is a big section at the end of the book, was that quite difficult to write every family out of that? Because obviously family are a big part of.
Yeah, I mean that I did wonder about that, about including, because obviously my wife was pretty keen to surviving the whole thing, and they all had to undergo it in a sense, in the same way as me, and they were relatively powerless in it as well. I think that's I allude to that, the fact that I did agonise about that, a little bit, because I thought, am I being entirely fair? But yeah, I thought I'll stick with where, because you open up a little Pandora's box there, because then people say, well, who are all these people? Why do they appear
suddenly turned up at the end?
Suddenly turned up at the end, so for the sake of continuity and for the sake of just it being a good book, my editor, the wonderfully named Jack Fogg, right?
You sure you haven't just made him up?
No, it really isn't out of Dickens. Jack Fogg with 2 G's at the end, as in Phileas. He said, look, I want to edit this like it was a novel. And I went, right, got it. Because I did about 160,000 words, and it was all written longhand.
And in the hub.
In the pub, yeah. Well, 50% of it probably. The rest of it was written on trains and planes and, on tour in hotel rooms and things like that. Because, of course, predictably, I had 6 months to write it, and I started writing it 6 weeks before the deadline.
Of course. Is this the surviving cancer the reason why it's such a positive book? I mean, do you think if your decision to be positive, the decision to write a kind of isn't life extraordinary, would you have written the same book if you hadn't been diagnosed with that, do you think?
That's one of the best questions I've been asked over the last 2 or 3 months of promoting the book, actually. I'm not sure, but the answer is quite possibly yes. I think in many respects the cancer diagnosis was was almost primary in my decision to do the thing in the first place. Partly because I felt that, first of all, I had an end point for the book, because in an autobiography you think, well, hopefully we're not done yet, but you still need to end it somewhere. And I thought, well, getting clear of cancer was like the start of the beginning of the rest of my life. So I think certainly the desire to tell an uplifting story about how the celebration of life, as opposed to the misery of tittle-tattle and and name calling and all this nonsense. I mean, and it is nonsense, you know. I mean, life is, what you do in life is so much better, and the positive things you do are so much more better, and they affect people so much in a good way than all the negatives that people like to, you know, go on and whinge about in you know, celebrity gossip and all the rest of it.
If there are any negatives, and there are some, a lot of them are aimed at the schools that you.
Well, yeah, but it's not that you know, one hopes that things have moved on, but it's kind of sad that, you know, people keep digging up more and more things from past eras that we now deem to be, you know, not acceptable.
Let's be positive. So you mentioned Mr. Worsley, John Worsley, who's your fencing teacher.
Yeah. I met his brother in Florida whilst I was on tour with Iron Maiden, and I turned up to, believe it or not, the Fort Myers fencing championships or something. It was in the 80s, and I turn up, and there's this bloke with the name Worsley, and he's got a northern accent. I went, "You don't know John? He's my brother." I mean, what are the chances? You know, it's fantastic. You know,
there's your drama teacher, John Campbell, so he gets a mention. But the bit I liked about your school the most is when you're talking about music and discovering rock and roll and discovering rock music, and Wild Turkey, a band who I'm not familiar with particularly.
You know the brand of whiskey that it's named after. Yeah, Wild Turkey. They were actually a really fantastic band, and they did I think a couple of albums and sort of never really heard of again. But I think at least one or two bands have borrowed some of their lyrics, as far as I can gather. I would like to say who, but you know, if you check out the lyrics to one or two of their songs years ago, but they're fantastic. And a couple of Welsh guys in there.
And the other band that I did latch onto is, and in fact Ian Gillan turns up a lot in your book, but you hear Deep Purple being played by someone else at school. I think it was from Deep Purple in Rock.
Deep Purple in Rock, Speed King. Right. You know, and I hear it from behind somebody's door, and I knocked on the door, and I was a little spotty sprog, you know, and this was a senior boy, you know, and he opened the door and said, "Yes, what do you want?" I said, "What's that? What's that thing?" "Oh, you annoying person, it's Deep Purple." I slammed the door, and I was like, "Who are they?" You know, and that was it, and that was off, you know.
Vocal hero?
Ian Gillan. I've got lots of vocal heroes. Some of them I can imitate, and I did when I first started out, and Ian Gillan was one of them. But you know, Paul Rodgers. I mean, all the greats really. You know, Paul Rodgers. I can't really sing like him, but you try and assimilate what's behind the singing, and you think, let's try and take some of that emotion and try and put that into what you do. Ian Anderson, I loved his lyrics. I loved the fact he was different and folky. Arthur Brown. I mean, Arthur Brown is, people go, who? Well, you know, Crazy World of Arthur Brown and I Am the God of Hellfire, all that stuff. But he did really wacky, like prog rock stuff afterwards that was pretty groundbreaking actually for this day. You know,
Ian Gillan will be on the show on Thursday because Deep Purple are playing live for Radio 2 in the Radio Theatre. We were just exchanging Radio Theatre. So you saw Metallica there.
I did. I interviewed them when I was working for the BBC.
That's right, when you did a rock show. So, I will mention your story in here about how he wiped sick from your mouth.
Yes, you can allude to that. Yes. Anyway, but it's not often you get dragged out. It's not often you get dragged out of a toilet by you know, when you're about, I think it must have been like 19 or 20 years old, and I'm being dragged out of the toilet and having my face wiped by. I said, "How not to meet your maker," you know.
Well, look, I've been offered a choice of playing Run to the Hills or Speed King. Your choice.
Speed King. Sorry, you know, you can hear Run to the Hills any old time. Oh, what's it say that?
You sure?
Yeah.
Final word?
Yeah, Speed King. You got to hear me sing.
live for Radio 2 on Thursday. However,
no. However, I mean, as a Deep Purple geek, you see, that is not the correct version of Speaking. The ultimate version of Speaking is the one that was produced by Martin Birch on the original record. That's some awful remix that's been produced to try and sell, stuff later. So, it's all right, but it's not everything. It's not great, is it? Really?
Well, I thought
not as good as the original. That had a lot more oomph to it. All that little boogie woogie piano nonsense.
So if you'd known, we'd have
and the harmony vocals, where'd that come from? Never mind. I'm sure somebody loves it. Their mother.
I feel kind of bad now. When Ian comes in on Thursday, we'll need to mention that.
Yeah.
When you're in the middle of all the medication, which you talk a lot about towards the end of the book, I'm amazed that you sound, certainly to start with, the thought that you might not be able to sing again doesn't really occur to you.
No, I was much more interested in being alive. And I thought, well, if the price for being alive is you can't sing again, I'll have to figure out something else to do. There's a thing about it makes you think about being a singer, is that there's more than one way to be a singer. And if your voice was completely different at the end of it, you'd have to figure out how to be a singer in a different way, because all you are as a singer is a storyteller, in truth. Because there are plenty of people with good voices. I mean, I've been quite lucky, hopefully. I've got a technically voice that does this, that, or the other. But I'm not alone in that. I mean, I was listening to Don't Tell Anybody, Strictly Come Dancing, right? Now, some of the singers on Strictly Come Dancing and the live band are absolutely awesome. I mean, there was a version of Layla. I was like, whoa, hello, so
actually when that came on, I thought you can't dance to this.
I don't care. It was a lot better than the crap they usually play. But absolutely, wow, that's just, there's some really good singers out there, and so it's not being a singer. It's not all about just being a voice. It's not all about just the voice. It's about what you do with the voice, which is why Leonard Cohen is such a brilliant singer, and not because he's got that rumbly voice, but because of what he does with the notes and how he phrases it and things like that. So, and you try and learn as a singer from all kinds of things that you sneak in there into your style. Probably people don't believe me. They say, "I know all you do is scream like you're nuts with a vice," but there's a bit
human error inside.
Yeah.
So, how long was it after you'd had so you had intense chemo and intense radiotherapy all at the same time? How long was it before you chanced the vocal cords properly?
Too soon, actually. I had a go whilst I was in even before I'd had the scan done, and it sounded absolutely awful. And I thought, resist the urge to panic, because you're not even out of the woods yet. So my ENT lady who was looked after the voice bit end of things, I said, when should I start singing? She went, give it about 10 months. And I went, 10 months? So actually it was a little bit quicker than that, but I thought, I think it's going to be all right. And strangely, the top end was actually better than it was before.
How would that be?
I have no idea. Well, here's my thinking. When if you pour a pint of Guinness, you get a really thick head, right?
Yeah.
If you leave it and you let all the little bubbles inside the head go down, the head changes shape. It sort of like goes into, it's like subsidence under the head. My thinking was that's what's happened to the inside of my throat, because I had a golf ball, 3.5 centimetre round lump growing in the base of my tongue, around the corner, and it's gone. No surgery, it's just gone. So apart from saying to my oncologist, where's it gone? I mean, what is it? Your body's just gotten rid of it. But if it's gone, there must be a residual difference in the shape of the tissue, and you spend your whole life learning to talk and use your tongue and things like that, and it's quite a complex thing that I don't fully understand, but your muscles all get used to things being a certain shape, and I think that changing the shape of basically the air passage might have allowed a bit more top-end air to come through. At the same time, one or two vowel sounds are a little bit more difficult to cope with, funnily enough, lower down in the mid-range. But you just learn to adjust slightly, you know.
So you're back in full effect?
Yeah, more or less, yeah. Actually, certain bits are better. How ridiculous is that, you know?
We could talk forever, but we appreciate you coming in, Bruce. Thank you very much indeed. A lot of Maiden fans out there just listening and hanging on every word. And,
well, because we've got a tour coming up, so woohoo! Hey!
Slightly shorter than they used to be?
You know what? We made a decision, probably 5, 6, 7 years ago, that if we were going to tour forever and a day, and I don't see any reason why we shouldn't, we need to keep things fresh, and we need to keep Brits. So I really look forward to going on tour. It's like, wow, brilliant. Highlight of my year, apart from lots of other things, is going on tour with Iron Maiden we do about 3 months. We do 3 months at a stretch. We do 40, 45 shows. Still not bad for a bunch of guys our age. 4 shows a week average, and we crack through it, and we have a great time. I've got to tell you, the last tour, the Book of Souls tour, we went out because we had obviously my cancer delayed things. We did a 75 date world tour, 6 months, and then we came back and did 3 months for about 50 shows in America. I loved it so much. If somebody said, we got to go and do another month, I would have gone, oh yeah, yes please, you know. So it's brilliant. I mean, the passion and the fire is still there, greater than ever.
Bruce Dickinson, we appreciate you coming in. Thank you very much.
Hello? Hello? Let me in!
Saturday night.